Good evening and welcome to the Monday Agenda. As we all know, on the 8th of March, we commemorate International Women's Day, and today a very special program to celebrate women in the world at a local, regional, and international level. Giving the context of refugee, I have with me Dr. George Mwita, who is the Country Director for Medical Teams. Dr. George, most welcome to the Monday Agenda.
Thank you so much, Austin.
I'm very sure and I'm very keen. So much is resonating in the minds of my viewers, like medical teams, International Women's Day, and now we're going to bring the aspects of refugees. So tell us in a nutshell, it's all our program today, how and what is medical teams and what are your mandate? What is it that you do in Tanzania? And how long you've been in Tanzania?
Thank you so much, Austin. I know medical teams is still is at its nascent stages, basically in the country, because we have been here since 2018.
2018.
2018, that's when we are registered here. We are an international faith-based organization registered in Tanzania. And, but globally, we work in a number of countries with our headquarters in United States of America, Portland to be very, very specific. In Africa, we are working in Uganda, of course in Tanzania, we are working in Sudan, we are working in Ethiopia, but we're also working in Colombia, Guatemala, among others. So, as I've already indicated, basically, medical teams work deals with displaced people. We work in refugee situations. We look at how we support people who are in crisis, in disasters. A practical example is what we are going through now, actually in Ukraine and Russia. As we are already talking, we are already working, there are already some systems that are put in place to ensure that we are able to support. As medical teams, we deal with a lot of health, and to be more specific, primary health. Primary health. Now, even as we celebrate this year, International Women's Day, as medical teams, our celebration, we want to celebrate very important women who matter so much, who go through a lot, even in our own lives. There is this concept we always believe in terms of women. Medical teams, and this year we are saying women are not homogeneous. We are talking about with a lot of heterogeneity in that sense, such a way that we have women who maybe go through so much than others. So our focus this year, we are looking at those pregnant refugee women.
Pregnant refugee women. Okay.
And those are the kind of people we want to see, we want to celebrate this year, because it resonates with what we speak about in terms of in terms of the theme. We are talking about without bias. We want to break that bias. So we want to see whether the refugee woman, the refugee pregnant woman, is able to access the same rights, the same services as any other woman who is not displaced. And for that reason, we thought it's an important forum to discuss and tell the world what is it that a refugee woman, a refugee pregnant woman, a refugee child in that camp is going through. What is their responsibility in supporting this refugee person as an individual, as a country, Tanzania, as a country, as donors? What is it that we are doing to support these particular people? And that's why this important forum, we want to share what is it that we have done. The very, very small things we've done, have they made an impact? Is there a way we can move forward? I think that is very, very important in this kind of discussion. To make it again, is you may want to ask us, you guys, refugees are many, and to be very specific, like now, we have been operating in 2 camps, in 3 camps, basically. Mtendeli, before it was closed in December by the government in consultation with UNHCR. In Nyarugusu, where we have our mother-to-child health center, and we have some complementary feeding program in Induta. However, we are planning to to open another health post in Induta because we've been approved by the Minister of Home Affairs through the Department of Refugee Services.
Okay.
So we are actually in serious negotiation with the UNCR and the government to see how we can quickly put up a health post again in Induta.
As we commemorate International Women's Day, before we deep dive onto it, picking up a refugee, this is your niche, that's your global vision. Women, narrowing it down, so it's not any refugee, but it's a woman. And in commemoration of the International Women's Day, pregnant. Would you by any, I would understand because you've done the planning already, so you would know what is your target number by now in terms of the amount, the number of pregnant women in the camps that you are attempting to reach in commemoration of the International Women's Day. Would you have that number?
If you look at the statistics that we have, and
Yes.
some of these statistics, we do not generate our own statistics.
Of course.
We get these statistics from the government and most importantly UNCR, who have been
That's
given the
correct.
responsibility. We are talking about, maybe to give the perspective in this level, that in the refugee camps we have close to 250,000 refugees. And something interesting is that at least 50% are women.
Okay.
And I want you to look at it from this perspective where that every month, for instance, in our dispensaries, in our health posts, we are able to get some deliveries or live births close to 250. So that tells you that in every month we are able to attend close to 250 women who come to give birth alone. We are not talking about how many are coming to seek for antenatal care. We are not talking about those particular women who comes to bring their under 5 children that we are handling. And again, it is important again to give this perspective, Austin, from this perspective that looking at how we work, medical teams works in very, very close partnership with other organizations in the camps. One of them is the TRCS, Tanzania Red Cross Society. We are also working with MSF. Because looking at the primary health care, there are some areas that once they move above that level, then they have to go to the next level. Like for instance, we do not say like, once we have that child, after 42 days, then that particular child is supposed to be taken to the next level.
Of course,
That
yes.
is to TRCS. So essentially, we are talking about women, serving women every month close to around 23 to 24,000 every month. Women.
Okay, all right.
And that's a huge number.
All right.
That's a huge number because these are women, again, both from the Congolese and the Burundian side, because those are the kind of people we're really handling very closely.
Okay.
Yes.
You did explain at the very beginning when you were explaining what medical teams is, and you stipulated that you started operations in Tanzania in 2018, but you also work in Uganda, you work in Somali, Congo, Rwanda?
No, Sudan, we work in Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Yes.
You don't have anything with Kenya and Sudan, Kakuma, the border, there are refugees there. Okay, and looking onto your areas of focus, you probably might have mentioned, you did say health facility, etc. But what is it that you're focusing locally here in Tanzania with an international perspective?
You know, Austin, we always put these things in 3 levels. We do, and sometimes people, when we talk about we heal, people talk about, no, it's only we treat and then God heal. But for us, we look at it in this perspective. We do direct implementation, direct health systems we support by owning specific health posts and maternal and child health centers. We have that. But apart from that, we also support in health systems. We strengthen health systems by purchasing medical equipment, medical supplies, medical consumables. And these are not just for the refugees hospitals. They are also for the host community, those hospitals that surround the Kigoma region in this particular case. But number 3, we also try to look at it, how do we strengthen communities? We are talking about healing. We are talking about strengthening health systems in collaboration with the government, but at the same time, we are talking about strengthening the communities. How do we do that? We want a system where the communities are aware of themselves and they are able to get those, especially what we talk about, the health-seeking behaviors, because there are some people who just believe maybe I can just give birth in my home. So what we are doing, basically, our focus is on those three major areas. We want to see a community that is informed, a community that is taking the responsibility. We want to see a system, a health system that resonates, that speaks to one another, both from the local level to the national level. And that is why we work very closely with the regional medical officer, very, very closely. And we're also working with the Ministry of Home Affairs, but also Ministry of that's a local administration, but very importantly, Ministry of Health. Those are very, very key critical ministries we're working with them because we cannot change systems as medical teams itself. We must change systems in consonance with the country laws, with the policies and all other laid down regulations. Yeah.
Before we, again, deep dive into the commemorations and the milestones that you want to achieve, or looking back, you're celebrating, just again to understand the global perspective. So you've been in Tanzania since 2018.
Yes.
When was a medical team found in the US?
Medical teams is as old as 40 years.
40 years old?
Yes. Okay. Medical teams was formed in 1979. And these are a history where the founder was looking at war, what we are seeing like today, what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, and someone makes a decision, it's like, no, wait a minute, people are suffering.
Yeah.
People are suffering. What do I need to do? So the reasoning was these people needs medical attention.
Okay.
They need so what do we need? I need to collect a few people, some medical team, and go to the ground and the support. And that's how medical teams, as an organization, was formed in 1979. So as we see today, we are talking about 40 years globally, but we keep on birthing new response teams and the new country programs. Like the Ethiopia and Sudan are hardly 1 year old. Basically.
Yes, because I wanted to ask you, Tanzania is said to be amongst the first countries to start receiving refugees back in 1975, if my memory serves me correct. And you started in 79, so I was hoping, probably looking onto Africa, Tanzania would have been the first country to, probably celebrating 35 years of already existing medical teams. But anyways, we are all grateful. So let's go slightly down into the International Women's Day. Refugee women who are pregnant, and you want to ensure that they have equal chances, equal opportunity. Before I really want to deep dive onto this, but just to understand, when you're a refugee, you're a displaced person.
Sure.
So you already have lost that sense of feeling at home.
Yeah.
Because you are, my viewers should understand that when we speak of camps, it's not like, fence, wires, policemen, like a prison, no. But you're in a camp, you're in a situation that you wouldn't have opted to be, despite of all the amenities that they're given as refugees. But how first do you want to ensure that is attained in terms of them in the camps feeling as equal or as okay as those who are not in the camp?
Thank you, Austin. The truth is, you have made it very clear in terms of this someone already, and for Tanzania, to be very specific, we have an encampment policy.
Yes.
So for Tanzania, in other countries, refugees live in settlement. I know we did that sometimes back, and then we're no longer there. Our refugee policy now is an encampment policy. They're in that particular level. The fact that these particular people have been moved from where they are comfortable, you are more comfortable in your home. It doesn't matter.
That's correct.
Whether you are sleeping hungry. The fact that you have been moved from that particular place is already a serious, it has a serious psychological effect, it has a serious economical effect because you cannot do that plant and so forth. Now, when it comes to health for us specifically, medical teams believes as health as a right. Access to health is a right, as a very basic right.
Correct.
So what we are saying is that in as much as this particular person is in the camp, he needs the best to access quality health services, in such as the same person who is outside the camp.
Yes.
So that you do not disadvantage this person further. He's already disadvantaged. So you don't disadvantage this person further. So what we are talking about in this case is we are speaking to governments, we are speaking to donors, we are speaking to policymakers, such a way that even as we talk about these people in that camp, what kind of policies do we have in terms of that they speak to the needs of these particular people? What kind of laws are we putting? What kind of engagement do we have with the local people? Because if we do not look at that, if the government do not even create a conducive environment, then obviously this place becomes already hell. It's already a hard place to be. So as we celebrate for us in this year, is we want to see how well can we create systems work? How well can we engage these refugees? How well do we ensure that even this child who is born in the refugee camp is able to access all the immunizations? You know what it happens. And therefore, medical teams struggles to ensure that with the support of other partners, PRM for instance, the population refugee migration, a very supportive organization for the US people. UNCR, how do we work to this? So these kids continue getting all the immunizations all through. These women who are attending antenatal are able to be spoken to and controlled in terms of advice, in terms of nutrition. What do they need to do? What happens when this happens? I want you to understand, Austin, that some of these women in the refugee camps, they go through very hard life, including rapes, while they are coming or even within those those camps. So how do we provide some psychological support to these particular people? So for us, this is a forum to share to the world that this is what we are doing. We are speaking to these women. We are speaking to these children who are born. Because if we do not, at the end of it all, our interest is that, and the government has to be very, very clear, when the situation stabilizes, then they'll be able to do what? They'll be able to go back.
Yes.
But what kind of a population are we taking back to Burundi, for instance? What kind of a are we taking back to Congo if these kids did not access the immunization? They did not access polio. They did not do this. So that's the kind of things we want to look at and look at you on the face and tell you, you have a responsibility as a host country, as a neighbor to Nyarugusu, as a neighbor to Nduta, as a neighbor to Mutendeli, though close. What is your contribution? How do you support these women? And therefore, as we celebrate, I want to see leaders coming out. I want to see organizations coming out. I want to see donors coming out. I want to see private sectors coming out and seeing how do we do this.
This is the Monday agenda, and with me on the studio is Dr. George Mwita, the country director for Medical Teams International here in Tanzania, and we're looking onto the wonderful work that they're doing in the refugee camps, but specifically this time around as the world commemorates International Women's Day on the 8th of March. George, you've mentioned a couple of interventions which really transformative into our community and the host community and the society at large. But I'm thinking, George, most of these themes that, emanate during international commemorations usually are celebrated for a couple of days, a week maximum, 2 or you know, and then after that, they just come to an abrupt end. So for instance, International Women's Day is commemorated on the 8th. On the 9th, you're already on the plan to look onto what theme for 2023. What is it that Medical Teams Tanzania is doing differently to ensure the plans, the theme is cascaded, is continuous, not only for the year or for the week or for the day, but it's continuous? Because if you're celebrating good achievements, that means they should have some form of sustainability.
Thank you, Austin. Again, this is an important point where we need to move now from the boardrooms and we go to the field. Many of these very wonderful themes are designed in the boardroom. And they're designed in the boardroom for purposes of funding and something like that. So my honest opinion is that we have to make deliberate decisions and design programs, have plans, have these priorities in our budgets as organizations and as countries, both at the national level, for instance, in our Tanzania, at the national level, at the same time as the local level. Such a way that, because for me, the issue of this celebration is reminding us about what our challenges. So you cannot keep on reminding me about the challenges and I'm not doing anything about them. So it's about reminding me about the challenge. So if we know this is a challenge, then what are we doing going forward? So I think for me, we must agree and have deliberate discussions, policy levels, implementers, and both private and NGOs to have that common understanding on how we need to do this. For medical teams, I have told you, since 1979, we have been consistent in providing healthcare or saving life for the displaced for the last 40 years. It's only unfortunate that we have nothing so much to do to stop the causes of those. If we had anything to do with that, we'd be able to design those programs like that. But we have been consistent that these people, when there is a crisis, when there is a disaster, whether man-made or natural, these people are vulnerable. These people, they are displaced. They have been moved from their comfort zone. So they need something. One of the key things that they need is health care, so that they don't have to run from a bomb but still come and die from malaria. Somebody runs from a bomb, still comes into Tanzania and dies from cholera. So we have to put systems that, yes, we can hold you here. And therefore, for us, we have continued to design our multi-year programs that speaks to that particular area. And what we think about is how do we even improve those particular systems. We have continued to look for more partners who have a similar understanding, who speaks the same language, and they do a number of things with that. I gave a practical example that for the last few months, we have been doing medical referrals. Those women, pregnant women, that want to give birth, and then unfortunately, maybe there are complications. We have to transfer them to the next level. But we are asking ourselves, if you look at the journey, the distance from Kigoma, for instance, to Bugando, and you have a pregnant woman who has complications, look at the roads. Our terrain is pathetic. Look at the distance. When you transport a sick person for 6 hours or for 7 hours, that's no longer an emergency. It's no longer an emergency. So what are we doing? We are saying we must improve health facilities that are within our areas of operation. By so doing, we are ensuring that we do not transport this emergency case for 6 hours because it sees as being an emergency. But number two, we are also minimizing the cost of transporting. But number three, we are building systems within the community that helps both the refugees as well as the local community, which in this case promotes integration and minimizes areas of conflict.
Okay.
So I think for us, that is the thing we are doing. And going forward, we have already planned. Our activities, our plans, speaks about how do we increase this. A few months ago, when I was joining medical teams, for instance, we had very few ambulances. So what did we do? Yes, we do not have money to buy ambulances. Ambulances are very expensive, not just a Kenya car.
Yeah.
They're expensive. I do not have ambulances. I had 3 or 4 ambulances. What do? You look for partners. You look for people who have a common understanding. I spoke to the UNCR. Guys, we need ambulances because as we plan to build hospitals around and equip them, for the time being, we are going to need an ambulance. So they agreed to that. Last year alone, they gave us over 8 vehicles. Why? We want to continue improving the services.
Okay.
So for me, what you're talking about, we must move from the boardrooms. We must stop politicizing a very critical area about health. Not just for the refugees, but health for every person in this country is a priority and it's a right. And therefore, I think for me, we have to speak. We move from those boardrooms to design very catchy themes and see how do we move forward. Excellent,
Dr. George. You've kind of preempted my next question, which was rather, does Medical Teams International, looking onto the local and international perspective, have any intentions whatsoever, midterm, long-term, to go beyond the refugee encampment? Are you planning to also provide your very explicit services to maybe the host community, but just being beyond refugee women who are in a camp?
Yeah, it's not that we are planning. We have been doing that.
Okay.
You know, what we are actually looking at, we want now actually to enhance and strengthen that kind of relation, but we have been doing that. The host community is a very, very important component in our program delivery in Tanzania and any other place that we have worked globally. I've already said this, which is very important, that the doctors that work in our health facilities, for instance, personally, currently I have around 79 Tanzanians. I had 116 employees who are locals, including medical doctors. Those doctors are trained here.
Okay.
Those doctors are registered in their association.
Correct.
And therefore, when I am using these people, they must be able to support our own people, at the same time, our own people of concern in the refugee camps. So in that level, we have to involve the local organizations, the local government, the national government in designing this. And that's what I was saying. If you look at that, I've just mentioned, I think in my conversation, that as we are talking now, in as much as we are designing programs for the host community, our interest, to be very honest here, our interest, we always look at the statistics that speaks to 2 people, the mother and the child. Very, very important. Even as we want to make a decision, we will always see that our decisions will be talking about the mother and the child. As we are talking now, we are building an operating theater in Ikasulu, DC.
Okay.
Over 200 million.
Okay.
We'll be doing that. Our interest is, once we have that, we look for finances, have equipment, such a way that I do not have to transfer a pregnant woman in a hardy top 600 kilometers to Bugando, just to do what? To go for an operation or something like that. So we are doing that.
Okay.
That is to support not just the refugees, but also the host community.
So it's open not only for refugees, but it's open for...
It's open.
Okay,
yes.
All right.
If you look at, again, I think in January, Maweni Referral Hospital, they have built a good theater.
Of 22, or which
Last
January?
year,
2021, okay.
Yes. They had built a very good theater, but we were supposed to give them some equipment. We also worked with our partners, UNCR. We were able to give them, we donated equipment over 131 million. So those are aimed at doing what? Supporting the local community. So when we are talking about that, I mentioned about an X-ray, which we gave the other day, again, in June last year, 2021, to these particular people. The reasoning is, again, we must bring this. Okay. And this has been my calling to other colleagues who are working in this country along Kigoma region. We must design programs, yes, that looks at our people of concern, but at the same time looking at how do we build the systems of the host place.
Of course, there's a saying which I came across recently. It says, you can't build an island of wealth in an ocean of poverty.
Exactly.
So you can't be, developing systems in the camps and not looking onto the host community. They will definitely break them and come into those. Doctor, we are almost coming closer to the end of the program. I am really appreciating every detail of the program and the role that the Medical Teams International is doing in the camps and, of course, the host community. And eventually, because if you're reducing the medical burden to the communities, this is cascaded all the way to the national budget. So this is your outreach is not only within limited scope, but it's actually, if you look at it, it's actually capturing the attention of the entire country. Looking on to 2022, Doctor, we are 3 months down, 9 more months before we call it 2022, but what plans do you have in place for 2022? Maybe if you also want to speak of a strategic plan, maybe 25 or 30, depending on you. So, but basically to start, what are your plans, short-term, maybe a year, and long-term plans in Tanzania? Of course, our prayer and wish, one as the government, two as yourself and any other organization working with refugees, is that situations are restored back in their home countries, that they go back. Yeah, there are no circumstances that made them flee at the first instances. All the situations are resolved. But I'm sure as an organization, international organization such as yours, you should be having an annual plan, then a couple of years plan and long-term plans.
Yeah, that's true. And the history of refugees, and you made it very clear, dates back 1975. And there are people who believed those refugees were here for a short time. Down the line, 75, people who were born in 75, now they're old men. Yeah. They still talk about refugees. So it is our prayer that these are people who their situation is going to improve. But going forward, again, our plans, it's very clear that our interest still remains to the displaced people. We still want to see, very, very clear, we want to continue improving the health outcomes of our pregnant women. And not just women, but very passionately, that refugee woman who goes through a lot. But that does not stop us from thinking with other people beyond that. So we have again put programs. Our programs are very clear in terms of reducing, contributing to the reduction of maternal and infants' morbidity and mortality. We want to see those numbers going down and down and down and down and down. I was speaking to one of my colleagues, my medical contact, was telling me there is nothing painful like when a woman dies when giving birth.
Of course.
Very bad. So we are praying and we are putting systems such that we wake up one day and we find we do not have anybody dying while giving birth. I want to be very honest with you here. In last year, 2021, I thank God that in our two health institutions where we operate in Mutendele and Nyarugusu, I did not have any maternal death. Oh, wow. For me, I felt so nice, and I thanked God so much. But because we pray, this being an organization, we believe in we are not alone. Part of our values, we believe we are not alone. God is there. You are there as the media to tell the people what you are going through. So we still have plans to ensure that the rate of malnutrition of the children under 5 must continue to come down. These are issues that some people don't talk about in town because you live in town. But in those particular areas, there are serious issues that we need to be looking at. Our very important thing, we will continue to coordinate, to collaborate with our regional health management team at Kigoma and other areas to ensure that we implement all the regional plans, all the national plans that are aimed at reducing deaths for the mothers and the infants. Those are very, very key areas we're having. We are intending to, this year, to see on how we can broaden our services in terms of reducing the delays, the waiting time.
Okay.
Because like initially, when we do two types of emergencies. When we have an emergency that is like someone wants to give birth, we quickly have to go. But sometimes we have to use what we call people who we can take them in a bigger group to hospitals. So sometimes we didn't have those vehicles. So someone has to stay for a long period before getting that. So what have we done? We are actually purchasing a new minibus to ensure that these particular people are able to be supported to the nearest hospitals for those services. So basically, we want to make our services better and bigger. Our strategy is talking about triple strategy. The number of people we are serving, if we are serving 3 in 2021, we want to serve 9. If we were purchasing, say, medicine of 2 billion in 2021, we want to purchase even 6 billion, such a way that we are able to access, people are able to access the medical equipment, medical consumables. So that's our strategy. Anything you give us, we want to give you 3-fold of that.
Excellent, Doctor. We literally have come to the end, Doctor, of the Monday agenda. But I'm sure if there's anything that is burning that you want to speak to someone, I'm going to give you 1 minute. I normally call this 1 minute of fame. Just speak to my viewers on the Monday agenda and just convey that message, and that will actually mark the end of the Monday agenda.
Thank you, Austin. My message is simple, and I'll take it from my today's session. We pray every day in our offices before we do anything. Our message today was about John 1:14, where it was very clear that Jesus is the light. What I request people to do, the government, donors, everybody where you are, please be the light to the person that is close to you. In terms of health provision, be the light. In terms of protection, be the light. In terms of funding, I can tell you, brothers, pray for these people who live in the camps. The only thing you can give these people, you may not have even money, but the only thing you can give this particular group is just that assurance that at the end of it all, we are one and we are brothers. Thank you so much.
We are one and we are brothers, and we remain and we shall remain so in ensuring that the world is a better place. We do not produce refugees at any given circumstance, and we join with Medical Teams International and all other people reaching out to providing any kind of services in the refugee camps, and we wish them very well in those endeavors. And as we commemorate International Women's Day on the 8th of March, I want first and foremost, George, through you and through your intervention, to all the women who are pregnant and in the refugee camps, wish them a happy International Women's Day. But to all the women globally, locally, regionally, and globally, a happy International Women's Day. And thanks to Medical Teams International for coming to the Monday agenda to celebrate with us the International Women's Day. And with those few remarks, I'm saying thank you so much to you, Dr. George Mwita, once again, and I wish you all the best in all your endeavors, and really let's make the world a better place, starting on the 8th March onwards. I'm your host, Austin Makani. Thank you for watching the Monday Agenda. Until next time, stay tuned.